Friends, now we are going to study about the effect of trauma on our brain and on our physical body. So before we understand what is the effect on it and what is going wrong, we need to understand a little bit about how a healthy system is working. Okay? So for that, I'm not going to give you deeper physiological anatomical study or anything, but basic things so that you will be able to grasp how this is being affected. So first, let's start with a very basic explanation of how our brain is. Okay? Maybe in your early science classes in school, you might have studied about the basic three parts of our brain, right? Cerebrum, cerebellum, and the brainstem. Okay, this is how we knew about the three parts. That's a very high level that we used to study about it. Now, for the sake of studying and understanding trauma and the stress response on our brain, we will go specifically at a few other parts, not at these specific words as such. Those three parts that we are going to focus is, one is brainstem. Brainstem is the medulla part which you have studied earlier, and then the limbic system, okay, and then cortex. Three things: brainstem, limbic system, and cortex. These are the three parts that we are going to focus to just have an understanding. Now, brainstem, as you already know, it connects our spinal cord to our brain. All our impulses, okay, from the spinal cord pass through the brainstem to our brain. Okay, this part gives us the bodily awareness of physical sensations. Uh, that's about the brainstem. Now, the second part is the limbic system, which is deep inside our brain. It's inside our brain. The limbic system is located within the cerebrum. So we knew about cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem, right? So the cerebrum is the big thing that we always see, and inside that middle part is the limbic system. And limbic system is not just one part. It is a cluster of multiple small parts. And for our sake, we will focus on four major parts inside the limbic system. Those are hypothalamus, thalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. Hypothalamus, thalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. See, why I am sharing this with you is probably your syllabus don't want us to go in this depth, but I thought having this understanding will really help you to understand what is really the impact of trauma. Okay, so to remember these four parts in the limbic system, the acronym or the clue that I'll give you is, remember a hippopotamus wearing a hat. Okay, hippopotamus wearing a hat. What does that mean? Hippocampus. So the first is the hippopotamus, we take it from there, and then we have the three other parts: hypothalamus H, amygdala A, and thalamus T. So hippo with a hat. Okay, remember these four parts. Now, limbic system is also called as our emotional brain, because anything to do with our emotions, major processing is happening from this limbic system in our brain. Okay, although behavior is a function of the entire nervous system, most of our involuntary aspects related to survival are connected to the brainstem and the limbic system. Okay, now I was telling you I want to focus on three parts. One is the brainstem, the other one is the limbic system, and the third is the cortex, right? At the top of the brain, the top portion, the limbic system is in, brainstem is bottom here, limbic system is in the middle deep area, and then the top of the brain is the cortex area. So that part of the brain is responsible for thinking, decision making, using language, and all other higher functions. Okay, that is coming from our cortex. Okay, this cerebral cortex is the outermost layer of the cerebrum. Okay, now understand, after just need to know that much about this basic parts in our brain. Now, how does this healthy alarm system work in our brain? That is something that we are going to understand. That for the functioning of the alarm system, the one part that is the key thing here is the amygdala. You remember, in the limbic system, we have a small part which is called as amygdala. This role of the amygdala is to detect threatening information through external senses such as touch, taste, sound, smell or vision. So all our 5 senses we have, right? So we have these inputs coming into our brain through one of these senses. Either we are seeing something or hearing something or touching something. From these senses, this information is going into our amygdala, and it is the amygdala which have to make that decision whether this is a threat or not. So it's like this what do you say, CCTV camera kind of thing, the whole time checking. Is it safe? Is my client safe? Is my client safe? Is Sajida safe? The amygdala's role is to make me safe here. Okay, make sure that I am surviving. It's how God has designed our brain to keep us safe. Okay, so this amygdala is responsible for determining whether the incoming stimuli is a desirable one or a dangerous one. Okay, now if the amygdala finds that this is life-threatening for us, it trips off the alarm. The alarm goes off. Okay, it rings the alarm. So when the body's alarm system is tripped, it goes on red alert. It sends signals to the different other parts of the brain to prepare us for something called as the stress response. Okay, so amygdala receives a signal and sends that it's life-threatening. So it sends the signal to the brain to fight or flight or freeze. These 3 are called as the stress response of our body: fight, flight or freeze. You might have seen this in the videos that I have shared with you. I have shared some simple videos so that you would get the concepts very clearly. Fight means we're trying to fight against it. For example, you see a snake right in front of you. What do? If you think I can handle this snake, I have a tool in my hand, I have something to rescue myself and fight over the snake, you would fight. If you're really scared, I don't have anything, I'm not going to win over this battle, what happens is you will run away from that place. That's a flight part of it. There are times when neither running is going to save me nor fighting is going to help me. So what happens is that you will faint, or you will fall down, or you will be completely frozen, not able to do anything about it. So those are the fight, flight or freeze response, which are called as the stress response of our body. Okay, there is actually a 4th one which is called as flight. We are not going deep into that at this moment. So these are the 3 major: fight, flight and freeze response. So when the stress response is triggered or the alarm goes off, okay, we call it the alarm system of our body. Okay, when the thief comes in, here is the alarm that just rings so that we can awake and do something about it. The same thing, that is what our brain is also doing. It sends off the alarm, it sets off the alarm, and then our body starts reacting immediately. So we have 2 biological defense systems in our body. In the normal functioning. This is all normal functioning. Remember that. There is nothing abnormal about this. This is how God wants it to function. This is how the original design is. Okay. When something is threatening, the alarm sets off, body fights, gets into stress response, and then we have the defense system enabled. Okay. The 2 systems from our autonomous nervous system is, so we have central nervous system and autonomous nervous system. And under the autonomous nervous system, we have 2 subdivisions there called sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the one which is responsible for mobilizing high level energy needed for fight and flight. Okay, so when the signal come to the nervous system from our brain, so this nervous system which is running throughout our body is what is responsible for getting us ready for this fight or flight. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the one which results in the freeze response. It's so interesting how contrastingly these two things work. When the sympathetic nervous system is enabled, what happens is that our heart rate goes up, more oxygen comes into our body, our pupil dilate, and then more glucose in our blood, more energy to our limbs so that we can either fight or flight, and less blood supply and oxygen supply to our digestive system and reproductive system. So that is how sympathetic nervous system functions. Why this way? Because God wants us to fight over this battle and win over it. And in the ideal healthy situation, you are not going to sit and eat when you have the tiger right in front of me, right in front of you. So, well, you don't need it there at your digestive system when you are in the face of a threat. Same way, you don't need that supply so much in the reproductive system also. You are not going to have sex when the tiger is right in front of you. So that is also kind of cut off at that moment, and the whole energy is focused on those areas of the body and those organs of the body which needs more energy at this moment. It's amazing how detailed this whole system is functioning. Okay, so that's about the fight and flight. But then it comes to a place where energizing is not going to help. Completely shut down the process, that is what is going to help. So that's when the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. It slows down the heart, it slows down the metabolic rate, and that results in a freeze response. Okay, and to maximize our survival as an individual, this evaluation and this instantaneous response and action is needed uh, for our benefit. Okay, it's very crude, it's very primitive, it doesn't use any deeper analysis. It's just this amygdala triggering and our whole body responding. Okay, but here actually the one thing about this process from the amygdala is that it doesn't use any deeper analysis using our brain thinking capacity. You remember I told you limbic system and cortex. Anything to do with the thinking and executive functioning have to come from the cortex. Okay, the limbic system is mostly handling this at an emotional level. So unless things go to the cortex level and that processing happens, we are actually not using our rational capacity. So what happens, we hear a sound, we jump up and down thinking that the whole world is collapsing. So that is the fast route. That is because the first trigger is coming from the amygdala, and we call that as the fast and dirty route. Fast and dirty route because no analysis, no thinking, nothing. Something triggered, just response to it. Okay, that is the first response that happens in our body. So that means the signals first come to thalamus, thalamus to amygdala, amygdala to hypothalamus, and it's the hypothalamus which activates the endocrine system. So that is how this fast and dirty route goes. Thalamus is the one first picks up the signals which sends to amygdala. Amygdala is the one which sends to hypothalamus to activate the endocrine system. Fast and the dirty route. Okay, so during this stress response, when this is happening, stress hormones, we have stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, and these are released into our brain. So how our body functions is a combination of a lot of combination of chemicals, hormones, and electrical signals. Okay, chemicals, hormones, and these combination is what make things work in our body. So initially it's going as nervous signals into our brain. From amygdala to hypothalamus is another electrical signal is going on, and from there it triggers the hypothalamus sends to the our systems which releases the hormones. So the adrenaline and cortisol are released. Okay, and when the cortisol and adrenaline are released, okay, we get the energy to fight or flight. Okay, amygdala is very sensitive to any danger and activates us for fight or flight. Now, in contrast to the fast and the dirty route of the amygdala, thalamus, amygdala, hypothalamus route, there is a parallel slow route that happens simultaneously. So, thalamus sends it to amygdala, right? In the same time, the thalamus also sends message to cortex. So, two sides it's gone. But that one takes a little more. When I say time, remember this is all in comparison of milliseconds differences that I am talking. It's not hour difference kind of thing. So first sent to amygdala, that's a right now, immediate, milliseconds kind of thing. And then go to cortex. That's when we suppose I'll tell you how it is. You heard a sound, you kind of startled, thinking something is wrong. That's because that's coming from the fast and dirty route. A second later you realize, oh, that's nothing, that's my husband starting his bike. Okay, you realized that because that second message which went to your cortex helped you to analyze what could be that sound, and it decoded and told you that it's nothing, it's just the bite starting. And so you kind of understood what the sound is, and you are no more startled or no more vigilant about that thing. So that second signal that goes, which goes to your conscious thought, memory, knowledge, reasoning, logic, and coming back, that is something we call it as the high road, okay, parallel route that happens, okay. And this kind of functioning is needed, the initial pockiness, and then quickly realizing what it is. Both of this happens, needed to balance how we respond to difficult, threatening situations in our life. So you have an idea of what happens with our alarm system in our brain and our body now. Very basic overall idea about it. Now, I want you to use this information at a very general level to help your clients understand and get out of shame, okay? Many times, many of the trauma clients come with a lot of shame. Like, for example, I had a client who was sexually abused, and one of her biggest things she was not able to get out was that, why didn't I fight with him at that time? Why didn't I fight with him at that time? I mean, what happened? And then she said, I was frozen. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't scream. I couldn't shout. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck. I was numb. I was frozen. Then I tried to explain this freeze response of the body. If your brain is sensing that fight or flight is not going to help your survival at this moment, your body automatically, unconsciously moves into the freeze response, and it's not your fault. These are unconscious things that happens with your brain and your body, and there is nothing to be ashamed about it. Okay, so when I tried to explain that part of things, and I gave her one or two simple readings from the internet to understand about the stress response, fight, flight and freeze response, and how freeze response comes to us, that was kind of a bit relieving to her. So it's good to have this basic knowledge for you, and you can use a little more simplified version without using any technical names or jargons or anything. You can tell how this basic survival functioning is happening with our body to help our clients to understand that this is a normal reaction of the body. There is nothing to be worried about it. Okay, sometimes there is self-guilt, self-blame, guilt, and all those things coming out of this lack of knowledge. Now, why, when this is the helpful thing is happening, why do we have PTSD symptoms? Why? Many times PTSD symptoms come because this alarm system is now malfunctioning, which was supposed to work normally. It's not working normally anymore. I want you to think like this. Suppose your building had an alarm to ring when there is a burglar coming in, okay? And so what happened is your child started to play with it, and then he started running in front of that burglar alarm so many times, and every time it's ringing, okay? After ringing it so many times like that, what happened is that it slowly started malfunctioning, okay? That you will say that please handle it carefully, it will malfunction. So it started malfunctioning that even when there is nobody right in front of there, sometimes this alarm just starts ringing because some of the things got really worn out or messed up or something happened that the alarm system is just ringing its alarm even when there are no burglars there. It's not exactly like this, but for you to have an idea of what is happening. So in our client situation, what happens when the trauma is prolonged and repeated, especially in complex trauma, the feedback loop that controls the two systems and helps to restore is no more working. Okay, so what happens is usually when those stress hormones come, we respond to it, and then we realize that we are now in safety, so our body kind of calms down, goes to a homeostasis, and then that short time of functioning is okay, the short time of stress hormones in our body is okay. But when those stress hormones are constantly released into our body, Okay, that starts affecting our life. Okay, after a while, what happens, that homeostasis is not reached. Okay, the stress hormones are continuously there in our blood, in our system. Okay, basically the alarm system is on, the body is always acting as if it is in the moment of threat. Okay, that the body is not able to, for whatever reason, the body is not able to, either because the trauma is still there, or the client is perceiving the threat the whole time. Okay, and because of which the body is not able to go back to its calm normal level. Okay, and what happens is that this will start showing a lot in our body. That is why there are a lot of physical illness coming from trauma, because see, the stress hormones are high. As I have told you earlier, when the cortisol is high, what happens is our bodies, all other organs start responding to it. The heart rate really goes up. It have to beat high so that more blood is pumped into our stream. Okay, but in the situation when there is no threat, if the stress hormone is still there in our body, what happens is the heart is still pumping. That's why people who are highly stressed, their BP goes up. Okay, they have these palpitations. Okay, because their heart is just pumping so high, as if you are in a moment of danger, when actually there is no danger. Other things that happens is we are unnecessarily getting stressed over things which is not necessary. That is also another reason why there is so much of stress hormones. Okay, we are worried about what's happening in the relationship issues, studies issues, job issues, church issues. We are not supposed to carry this stress in our body like this, and God wanted us to surrender it to Him. God knows that we will get anxious. Okay, don't think that we will never get anxious. We all will get anxious, but what do we do when we get anxious is what God wants us to handle in a better way. Okay, cast all your anxieties to Him. Cast all your anxieties to Him, because you have anxiety, right? So we have anxiety, and we need to learn to give it to Him and walk under Him, under His control, under His sovereignty. We are not supposed to carry these burdens, and here we are carrying all these burdens and stress in our brain and in our body, and because of which there is continuous stress hormones released in our blood. And more the stress hormones are there, the more our heart is just pumping. Okay, more results in high BP. Another thing is that when the stress hormone is there in our body, what happens, the stored glucose starts breaking up, so that there is more glucose in our body. And what happens when there is high glucose like that always in our body, we are diagnosed with diabetes. Okay, so you can see how it creates damage to our physical well-being. And when the stress hormone is there, we are not able to sleep, because we are not supposed to sleep when it's in a real stress. Now here we are not in a real stress, but we are stressed, because of which there is sleep impairment. Okay, it was designed that we will not sleep when there is a threat. Now the key thing what we can do is the ability to distinguish between real threat and perceived threat. That is one thing. Another thing that we need to understand here is that, am I just taking stress to damage myself? Okay, how can I get out of this stress mode? Okay, so another thing is how our digestive system starts impacting, because there is, as I said, when we are in that stress mode, our digestive system is kind of inhibited. Okay, so more and more this is inhibited, means what happens, no proper metabolism is happening. So it could result in obesity is one thing, indigestion issues coming, constipation and other things, or gastric trouble. These are all because we are unnecessarily carrying a lot of stress. A lot of hormonal issues comes at times. So this is all interconnected. Okay, so even if it's not a big trauma thing, even if it's not a big trauma thing, in our day-to-day life, if we don't learn to manage stress, we are creating a lot of psychological and physical problems for us. And that is why God wants us to cast our anxieties on Him. And also in Corinthians, there is another verse which talks about it. Every arguments and every pretensions that arise against the knowledge of God, we need to take hold of it and bring it into captivity. Why? Because there's a lot of mental arguments going on inside us. And the more arguments goes inside us, the more stressed we are. The more stressed we are, we won't be able to walk in freedom in the way God wants us to live. Okay, so be able to handle our stress is a key thing here, starting with ourselves as well as helping our clients to come out of that stress mode. Okay, so helping them to realize, okay, suppose some major event happened also, helping them to realize that, can you be in the present? Can you understand that you are safe now? Helping them to realize between real threat and perceived threat is another thing that is going to really help them to slowly come out of this negative cycle. So you got an understanding of how it affects our brain and how it affects our body, and trauma is something that destroys our life if you don't take control of it. Okay, hope you understood this basic understanding of this, how trauma affects our brain and body.